right. Thank you. How would it feel to work in an environment that's filled with passion and innovation and empowerment? What would it be like to be in a culture that's productive? A culture that's inspiring and engaging? When I ask most people that question, they answer it with words like, it would be great, incredible, it would be awesome. What would it be like to show up to work every day and be around people that described it as awesome? Unfortunately, most people don't describe their work cultures like that. They use words like, it's frustrating, it's overwhelming, it's unsupportive. They don't use awesome. They describe their cultures in a way that makes it feel off balance, which is not a big surprise when you think that Gallup did a poll that suggests that over 80% of people in the workplace are either not engaged or actively disengaged, leaving only 13% to be classified as engaged. Only 13% who make positive contributions in the workplace. So how is it with such high levels of disengagement that some people achieve harmony, that some achieve teamwork, that some achieve balance? I believe that those leaders provide more than a place to work. They provide a place to grow. Now, no one strives for 13% engagement, but it happens. And when I ask leaders what their challenges are and what their frustrations are in their environments, what causes it to feel off balance, they'll say things like communication is poor and team morale is low. They'll say that I can't delegate things to anybody and no one takes initiative. And then eventually, inevitably, one leader will say the M word, Millennials. And the other leaders will nod in agreement. Yes, Millennials are my challenge too. I struggle with Millennials too. And the leadership fingers point the blame to that generation. Now, the Millennial generation has the birth years ranging from the early 1980s to the early 2000s. Is it possible that that entire generation is a problem? Is it possible that one generation is causing workplace cultures to feel off balance around the world? Many leaders would say yes, and they would refer to that generation as entitled and lazy. And some would call them job hoppers with no outlook on the future. Millennials are absolutely not a problem. They are not a leadership challenge for leaders who are focused on providing balance in their environments. Just as the Chinese philosophy of yin and yang suggests that opposites are required for balance, I believe that leaders who achieve the highest levels of engagement provide balance in the workplace. But unfortunately, most leaders only focus on training. They train their people in the hopes of having better workers, but they miss the other half. They miss the portion about developing them so they have better people, developing them to perform like leaders. If we want to bring our environments full circle, then we need to provide the engagement ring. We need to make that commitment to do more than train, but the vow to develop our people. And I remember exactly where I was standing when I learned the difference between training and development, and it was August 24th, 1987, and I stepped onto the yellow footprints at the recruiting depot for the Marine Corps in San Diego, California. That was my first day on the job. Does anybody remember their first day on their job? In most companies, you have an onboarding program. You have a tour, an orientation. You get to meet your coworkers, and I'm assuming it's probably friendly and nice, maybe welcoming. That's not what happened here. It was 11:30 at night when all of us showed up, and we all stood on the yellow footprints, and we were surrounded by drill instructors. And they were yelling and they were screaming, and it was chaotic. But that was the beginning of becoming part of something special and something great. That was the first step for the onboarding program for the United States Marine Corps, also known as boot camp. So let me introduce you to my onboarders. And I want you to get a good look at that picture, because that was the picture that went home to our moms. We never saw them looking that happy. They were hard on us, and boot camp was tough. We got up at the crack of dawn every morning, and we ran everywhere. We went through the gas chamber together, and we intensely prepared for combat. But our drill instructors did more than just train us. They developed us as leaders. They taught us leadership traits like justice and integrity and enthusiasm. They taught us leadership principles like know yourself and seek self-improvement. Before I was issued my weapon, before I used my gas mask, and even before I knew what job I would do, I was developed to think like a leader and act like a leader in every situation, no matter who was following me. In fact, I didn't even know what job I was going to do until the very end of boot camp. And the drill instructors went around and they called off our MOSs, our military occupational specialties, which is just a long way in the military for saying your job. And when they got to me, they called my name. Therwanger! Everything's loud in boot camp. So I replied, "Sir, here, sir." And he said, 7311. They didn't know what that job was. So I asked my friend Robert, "What's the 7311? He said, "I don't know, man. You got to ask him." The him he was talking about was the big guy on the right, Sergeant Hughes, who 2 months earlier choked me out for scratching an itch on my chest. So I said to Robert, Are you sure you don't know?" And he didn't know, so I had to ask him permission to talk to him. And I said, "Sir, Recruit Therwanger requests permission to speak to drill instructor Sergeant Hughes, sir." And he said, "What do you want, dirtbag?" But he didn't call me a dirtbag. I'll let you think about what he might have called me. And I said, "Sir, the recruit does not know what a 7311 is, sir." And he said, "You're going to talk to airplanes. Now get out of my face." So I did. And I went back over to Robert. And he said, "Hey, what are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm going to talk to airplanes." And he says, "Well, wait a minute. What does that mean?" And I said, "I have no clue, but I'm not asking him again." On November 13th, 1987, I graduated from boot camp. And I remember the words my recruiter said to me right before I enlisted. And he said, "Erik, becoming a Marine is not about what you get, it's about who you become." And on that day, I became part of something special and something great. On that day, I earned the title of United States Marine. We were trained and we were developed in an environment that had balance. And after boot camp, I was sent to school. They trained me how to be an air traffic controller. And I worked here in this tower. Has anyone flown anywhere recently? How do you feel knowing 18-year-olds are controlling air traffic? Happens every day in the military. That's Marine Corps Air Station Yuma, Arizona, busiest military airport in the world. All branches of service used our airfield, and we also controlled civilian traffic. I was in that tower because I believed I should be there. I was in that tower not because I was trained, but because I was developed. And my development caused me to do so much more with my training. I was in that tower not because I was ordered to be there, but because I was inspired to be there. And I was 18 years old. And air traffic control is a pretty stressful field. But we operated in an environment of balance, of training and development. Could you imagine just for a moment if our entire military operated with only 13% engagement in their people? and their ranks are filled with millennials. How are they leading them? How are they achieving the highest levels of excellence with a generation that most leaders have given up on? Military leaders create the highest levels of engagement in their people in millennials. And most business leaders struggle to even find a shred of buy-in from that same generation. Military leaders create these high levels of engagement, and then I hear business leaders say things like, I can't find any good people in this generation. And yet the military has hired, trained, and developed 250,000 millennials since that generation entered the workforce. They don't have that problem. Regardless of what industry we work in, as leaders, we are in the people business, and most businesses miss the people side of their business. We accomplish things through the efforts of other people, including millennials. And millennials want the same things that we do. They want to operate in an environment that's balanced. They want to be trained and developed. They want to make an impact in our world. They want to make an impact in their communities. And they want to make an impact in business. So don't just train them, develop them. And there's a number that we have to be very excited about, and that number is 95. 95% of people, including millennials, want to be part of something special and something great. And as leaders, it's our job to plant those seeds in them of development, the leadership seeds that will help them to develop and help them to grow. And we develop people so that we work with people who are looking for more than just income. They want outcome. That we're working with people who want more than a position, they want purpose. We want people on our teams who want to do more than just cash a paycheck every 2 weeks. They want to invest their passion with us every single day. The millennial generation absolutely does not want to be your disengaged employees. They want to be your engaged team members. And I think I can speak for them when I say most of them don't even like being called millennials, because people say it in a derogatory fashion. Right now, there's 20 million more members of that generation in the workforce than baby boomers, and baby boomers are leaving at a rate of about 10,000 a day. So, if we want to have balance in our environments, we have to provide the engagement ring. We got to have balance between training and development. We want to develop people so they focus on more than just what they do and how they do it, or even why they do it. We develop people so they focus on who they do it for, because their who is infinitely more powerful than their why. At the end of the day, Marines are trained and they're developed. And they're developed to focus on people. They focus on their who. As a Marine, I looked out for the Marine to my left and to my right. Just imagine for a moment. Imagine creating a culture that has balance of training and development. Imagine that you can develop people who focus on their who. What would it be like to walk into work every single day with people who look out for the team member to their left and the team member to their right? I bet it would feel great, incredible. I bet some of you would say it would feel awesome. Thank you.